Hey, hi everyone. Can everyone hear me okay? So today I'm here to speak to you all about, and this is the research roadmap. And I'm going to be talking today about, so you want to do a literature review or a systematic review. So what they are and what they aren't. We're going to be talking about really kind of overarching concepts today. You'll see some examples of searching, but I'm not going to get too much in depth into the searching itself. So we're just going to cover some concepts. Okay, so the slides are available here. I'll just wait a few seconds if you want to scan this QR code. I also will follow up and send the PDFs to Dr. Sims so she can send them out to everyone. I'll just wait 1 second just in case anyone needs these. Okay, I'm going to go on and get going here. Oops. Okay, so the first step in writing a research question. So whether it's a literature search, a systematic review, a narrative review, or just a general literature review, the biggest pitfall and one of the biggest challenges I see people come in with is how to write a research question. So these are just some steps on how to narrow your topic or how to broaden your topic and things to consider. So topics vary in comprehensiveness in the literature. So there's not always a general rule of you have to be broad or you have to be narrow. It really depends on whether the research is new or if it's older and there's a lot of it, or maybe it's a very big topic like health disparities. And what that can mean can be so many different things, right? So it really depends on your question, how you need to narrow or broaden. But I would say 90% of the people who come to me have to narrow or broaden their question in some way. So just be aware of that when you're thinking through that. And I'm going to have some resources available here in a few slides that you can view and access to help think about your own search queries. The next thing is we don't search for outcomes. So whether it's a literature review, a systematic review, or if you're just doing general searching, I very rarely recommend searching for outcomes. So you might have a question that follows the PICO format, but you don't always want to search those outcomes because it's essentially inserting bias. You are already having the answer that you're wanting from the literature, right? So there might be another better therapy or treatment, but you are only searching one outcome with one drug, for example, and then you can't find anything. Or you find things that are just really biased into that one drug therapy, and there might be another one. So just be aware, like outcomes are a very common thing people come to me with and want to search. And I often recommend not doing that because, again, that is your hypothesis and you already kind of have an answer for it. The next is use a framework. So PICO is a very common framework. I'm sure you all have been asked to write a PICO question, but there are several different types of frameworks that can help you conceptualize your research question. So on the next slide, here is a table from a research article that I like to show people. So it's an article about what kind of systematic review should I conduct. And I like this table because it doesn't have to be for systematic reviews. It could be for any type of review or literature search that you're trying to do. So what this does is it breaks it down by different type of review type. So you could change that to question type. So maybe your question is an expert opinion question, or it's a psychometric question. You can go down here on this right side or on the left side of the table, and you can go over here and see a framework that might help you. Some of the big ones I like to point out is there's PICO, of course, but again, that doesn't fit every single question. It fits a very specific clinical case. I like PICO here as well, that has population, the area or phenomenon of interest, and your context. That's another way to conceptualize your question. And then Cocoa Pop is another one. So maybe it's a condition, a context, and a population that you're looking at. So this is a really great tool. And it also gives some examples of different questions on the right side of the table. And it's just really helpful to when you're trying to write your own questions that are actually searchable. It can help you with that. Okay, so we also have some tools available to you on how to develop a research question. And this guide here, I'm going to show it a little bit later in the slides as well. I'll do a demo of it. But we have a specific page on how to develop a research question. We have examples here of different type of research questions. We have lists of different frameworks like Pico and Spider and Eclipse, and there's other ones as well. And we also break it down by review type. So maybe you're interested in a scoping review or a systematic review, and we're going to talk about those some more today as well. But this breaks that down, and there's also some tutorials here that will help you walk through how to develop a research question that's actually searchable, and that's the big issue. So if you need more assistance, these are two great videos I just want to point out. We developed these with our Searching Health Disparities guide, because health disparities is a common topic that students come to us with all the time. It's a really complicated topic to search. So, but these are very general. So any type of question you have, you can watch these two videos and it will help you develop a searchable topic and then how to get results that are generalizable. Because a lot of people will search for Kentucky literature, but there's not that much about Kentucky in the literature itself. It might be about the southeastern United States or a specific region in Appalachia. So sometimes you have to generalize the research that's out there to apply it to your own research question. And that's what these two videos can help you with. So what is the hardest part? It is writing a solid and searchable question, because the question often determines the methodology. So an unrefined research question is one of the most common pitfalls that I see. And we'll get into more about how the question determines the methodology in a moment. But if it's a general question that you're just trying to get a quick answer for, that might be a literature review. But with systematic and scoping reviews, your questions really determine which review type you're going to use. So we'll talk about that too. So I think there's a few people here. So we could do this activity if you all would like. I like to do this activity. So you can scan this code. You can also, let me go back. I think someone's scanning it here. And then what I want you, or you can also go to menti.com and type in this code here. And I want you to insert what question you think is the most searchable question. Okay. So it looks like we have about 5 people on here right now, so I'm just going to stop here. So I want to talk about this a little bit. So the first one, what is the most effective treatment of skin cancer? That's actually really broad, right? What type of skin cancer? Who is it most effective? Like, what is an effective treatment? What treatments are you applying? Those are all ways to make it more specific. We get questions like that one all the time. And that's a really good example of a topic that's covered in the literature quite extensively. So you'd want to be a little bit more narrower there. So does a daily mindfulness practice reduce burnout in emergency department physicians? That's actually the most searchable question out of all of this, right? You have your population, which are ED physicians, and then you have burnout, and then you have mindfulness as your actual practice. So that would be a pretty easy one to translate into a search. And then for the third one, the Eastern Kentucky piece is what's super narrowing, right? I think Kentucky's in PubMed about 2,000 times, maybe a little bit over. So you're only going to, at best, going to get 2,000 articles if you use terms like Kentucky. If you use Eastern Kentucky, it's even more narrower. So I would actually expand this. I've done some systematic reviews on this topic in the past, and I actually expand it to include things like Kentucky, West Virginia, Tennessee, and things like that. And I can build a search around that. So those, you can actually map it to, there's actually regions of Appalachia, and that's what I use to help develop that. And then no one did the weight loss one. That one is actually, it's not bad either. You might need to broaden it to online interventions instead of just mobile apps. But so most people got it right. The second one is the most searchable question. Okay, so let me go back to the slides. If you have any questions, do just pop them in the chat. Okay, so what is literature searching? Literature searching helps you understand the complexity of a clinical issue. It gives you insight into the scope of a problem and provides you the best treatment approaches and the best available evidence on the topic. Of course, you have to do your own critical appraisal to those articles, but the general activity of literature searching is kind of the foundation of all the other type of review methodologies. So the steps of literature searching are these. One, you want to select a framework or have a really good question. You don't have to use a framework, though frameworks do help. And so that's the step one, and to identify your question. The next is to identify databases. So there's things like PubMed, Embase, CINAHL. There's ERIC, which is an educational database. There's Pedro, which is a occupational therapy, physical therapy database, and OT Secret. There's so many different databases. PubMed's the most general one. That's the one I usually recommend people go to if they're just wanting to do one search to find some articles. And if you are wanting to search multiple databases, and we'll get into why you might want to do that, you have to translate your syntax. So every database speaks a different language. So you have to then translate your PubMed search into Embase, and you have to translate that into CINAHL. And each database kind of speaks differently. And then you want to select relevant articles and review each to determine if they meet your needs. And then remember, it is an iterative process. So with general literature searching, you're just going back, changing your searches, adapting them as you're moving through the process. So here's some databases. They matter because they cover different things. PubMed pretty much covers every health field that's out there. It's the most comprehensive and the most broad. There's specific ones like CINAHL that covers allied health, nursing, but it also covers things like health promotion and women's health really well. So if you're searching for a women's health topic or a maternal mortality topic, for example, you'll want to include CINAHL. It would be a database that excluding it would not be very helpful to your research. Cochrane Library you're probably familiar with Cochrane reviews. Those are there, but there's also registries. So if you're interested in prospective research like clinical trials and WHO's clinical trials, Cochrane Library is a great place to go. Embase is really great for pharmaceutical research, for foreign titles, so foreign publications, the basic sciences, and it also covers a lot of the same things as PubMed. So you'll get a lot of the general health fields as well. Web of Science is an interdisciplinary tool. It searches medical databases, but also sciences and arts and everything in between. I really like it because it also can cover emerging sources. So there's journals that don't quite have impact factors yet. So this is really good for newer areas of research or new journals if you're trying to look at something that's new to your field. And PsycInfo, of course, is good for wellness and mental health and psychology. And these are just a few of the most common ones we search regularly, but there's dozens. We have hundreds of them. So, whoops. So why so many databases? So databases index different topics in journals. So if you're wanting to be more comprehensive, you have to search multiple databases. Again, we have hundreds of them. You can always reach out to me or the Medical Center Library for help selecting one or translating between them. And each database, like I said, speaks a different language. So your librarians can help you with that and help teach you how to speak to the different databases. So this is an example I like to show of why multiple databases is helpful. So when you're searching, if you search every database, you're probably not going to get every single article. So maybe you'll see out here, these relevant articles aren't being found by this search. And then right here are the duplicates, so both database 1 and 2 are finding them. And then here, these are the ones database 1 finds, and these are the ones that database 2 finds. So you can see the more databases you add, the more comprehensive you can be. With literature searching, and we'll get into literature reviews too in a moment, your 1 to 2 databases is going to get you a good chunk of articles to go through. But where this comes in differently is when you do systematic or scoping reviews. So, like I said, I'm not gonna get too much into searching, but we have hours worth of searching videos for you. So, we have an introductory one on like what the databases are, how to search them. And then we have more specific tutorials for like Embase, PubMed, Web of Science, PsycInfo, and CINAHL. So, sorry. You can always watch these videos or make an appointment with the librarian, and we'll be happy to walk you through the process. Okay, so literature searching is the foundation of all these methodologies we're going to talk about next. So the searching is the activity, while the different types of methodologies include literature reviews, narrative reviews, which are pretty much the same thing. Then you have rapid reviews. Those are a little bit less rigorous and less high quality. Rapid reviews are definitely more high quality and more rigorous than literature or narrative reviews. But the four on the right are the most common and most rigorous. There's other ones out there, there's interview reviews, there's a bunch of other ones, but these are the four that we see the most that people are wanting to complete. And the four on the right, systematic review, scoping, umbrella, and meta-analyses are the most rigorous. And the searching information discovered is the foundation of all of these methodologies. So I'm going to do this little presentation here. We created this tutorial. Hopefully it loads. It worked earlier. Okay, yeah. So this is a tool you can use to help you choose the right review. So if you click on it, you'll go in and we're just going to kind of walk through this really quickly. So do you plan on gathering all evidence on the topic? And if your answer is no, then you want to do a literature review. A literature review is much more broad. It answers, your searches are not comprehensive, but it's more precise. They summarize a topic. You're not going to get every single article out there. You're probably not going to do that much critical appraisal, though you may do it. It's not systematized. So that's, if you don't want to collect everything out there, then you don't need to do that. So let's say you do want to collect every piece of information out there on your topic. Do you have a well-formulated research question? So if you say no, again, I've already talked about this, go back to your frameworks, really think about your question and come back to this. Okay, so if you have a well-formulated research question, do you have 12 to 14 months to complete the project? That's one of the biggest things people don't realize, is that these reviews take a lot of time. So if you say no, a rapid review might be an option. I've had people finish these in like 6-ish months. Rapid reviews are not as rigorous because they accelerate the process by simplifying the data you're collecting. So you exclude things like gray lit, which is like conference abstracts and proceedings. It's prospective research like from clinicaltrials.gov. That's always really hard to find as well. So it also sacrifices some of those more rigorous pieces to make it quicker.
That's good. But when you're given the ranges of, about 6 months and 12 to 24, what is like estimated time you're spending on that per week or per month?
It kind of depends on the process. So if you're working with a librarian and they're co-authoring and co-work like a co-person on the project, your work up front is a little bit less because you're not doing the searching and the translating and the data collection and management. But if you're doing it by yourself and you're wanting to learn how to do all that process, I would say, like I actually track this and I should have saved some of those numbers. Like I've spent 76 hours on a project before. I've spent 20 hours on a project before. So it kind of depends. Title abstract review, they say you can review, for every 100 you review, you're keeping 3 to 7 to go to the full text review. So it depends how much data you get, how much questions you get. Like one review I'm working on now has 3,000. I think they can probably like get through those pretty quickly. So it kind of ebbs and flows is the answer, kind of depending on the project. Sorry, that's not a great.
No, that's fair.
Okay.
That's great model.
Not good. Okay, so if you do have that time, are you going to scope the literature? Or is your topic really broad, or are you examining a new area of research? And if so, a scoping review is where you want to go. And we're going to talk some more about this in a moment. But scoping reviews are really great because they help you identify available evidence, they help you clarify concepts in the literature, they help you map gaps. It's more of a qualitative approach, and we'll get into some of this in a moment. But it's often a precursor to a true systematic review. So an area that's newer in the literature, where you're just trying to see like what's out there, you're trying to find knowledge gaps with these. So if you want to include and review only systematic reviews in your topic, then that's an umbrella review. Umbrella reviews compile evidence from existing reviews. So this is kind of a new trend in the field, to be doing systematic reviews of systematic reviews. It's very meta, I suppose. So umbrella reviews are looking at systematic reviews. They're critically appraising those systematic reviews and then bringing that evidence together and showing the overall quality of evidence. So just like you do critical appraisal to an RCT or cohort study, you can do critical appraisal to systematic reviews. And like I said, this is a hot topic. We'll talk some more about this at the very end too. If you don't want to review systematic reviews, you would choose a systematic review. Systematic reviews are one of the most rigorous. I would say umbrella reviews are too. They help you confirm current practices. They can be used in clinical practice guideline development. They help you identify areas of future research. They help you really examine maybe a treatment option. They allow you to bring all this population data that might be in all these RCTs, for example, and bring all of those smaller populations of like 15 or 16 people into one big population. And you can then make bigger decisions based off that. Again, your studies have to be very similar, and the systematic review process helps you with that. But that's kind of the purpose of a systematic review. So will you use statistical methods to collate data and include studies and objectively summarize results? If you're going to not do that, then you don't need to do a meta-analysis. But if you are, you have to do a meta-analysis. So often you'll see systematic reviews that do meta-analyses. Meta-analyses aren't often done, I think, by themselves. You usually do a systematic review and then you do a meta-analysis on all the articles you included or a subset of articles you included. Because to do a meta-analysis, your populations that you're reporting from all these studies have to be very similar in order for it to be statistically significant. And you will need a statistician for a meta-analysis. So that's kind of the big overarching ones. We're gonna, if there's any questions, I don't think there's any in the chat, but just let me know. We're gonna get more into literature reviews, scoping reviews, and systematic reviews. So literature review just analyzes and discusses published literature. It summarizes, synthesizes, and you can critique, though you don't have to, or praise. They help you locate trends and patterns, and they're often like the basis of when you're writing a background for a paper or a discussion section for a paper. So here's an example of a search one of my colleagues did that is a literature search for a literature review. You can see that it's a little bit odd here. That's the beauty of literature review searching, is you kind of like combine terms in weird ways to best meet the need of the researcher. So this researcher was looking at compartment syndrome in the fat. And you can see like we have compartment syndrome here with our mesh term. And if you're unfamiliar with mesh or title abstract, we have videos, you can meet with me. I'm happy to talk you through that. You can see we have adductor and thigh here together. And then we also have exertion and chronic together. Those are weird terms to or together, but we do that because there wasn't much in the literature. So you have a lot more freedom with these searches. They're usually a lot smaller, and then you can find a small set of articles. And I have an example to show you kind of what that looks like. So literature reviews are great for a quick review. You're not going to have a comprehensive list of all articles that are out there. Instead, you'll have like a precise allotment of literature to go through. They can help you prove not much exists, which is what that one was doing that I just showed you. There wasn't much out there, so that's what literature reviews and searches can really help you do, because that means you might want to publish something in that area because there's not much out there. You might want to do a case report if you had a patient that showed with this disease or condition. They're great introductions if you're just trying to learn about a topic or you're wanting to just write a general like literature review paper. They're great for that. And I will say literature reviews can be done systematically. So we can document our searches, we can search multiple databases, we can do all of that, but you don't have to blind or norm and worry about intercodal reliability and things like that, and like you do in a scoping or systematic review. So often some students will come to me and they think about they're wanting to do a systematic review, and we end up doing more of a systematized literature review because then they don't need multiple reviewers and worrying about blinding and hiring or working with a statistician, things like that. So they can be done systematically. So when you're doing literature reviews, you're actually aiming at precision versus sensitivity. So, and we'll see this in a moment, but precision is like you're zooming in to a small set of articles, while sensitivity is going to be more broad and safe for systematic reviews. So systematic reviews, I'm going to call these evidence syntheses as well. That's kind of the broader term, which I have a slide on in a second, but they have a clearly stated set of objectives with an explicit reproducible methodology. And that's the biggest piece. Your searches have to be saved. Your data has to be saved. You should be putting them into a repository because your searches are data. You'll have to be blinding and norming and all of these different things. And you'll have to be having inclusion and exclusion criteria. So it's a much more time-consuming and thorough and rigorous process. So again, evidence syntheses is the broader name for all reviews. Everyone comes to me and says they want to do a systematic review, and often it's a scoping review or a rapid review. So we're just, if you ever hear the term evidence synthesis, those are kind of the broader terms for all of these.
Can you define blinding for those systematic reviews?
Oh, yeah.
Like, I mean, it's a piece of paper, like give it to you, how do you, like, what do you blind for?
Yeah, so you actually, so when you're doing systematic review, if you're fully blinding the review, you have at least 2 reviewers on every systematic or scoping review, whatever it is. And you give, if you have 5,000 sets of citations, you give 5,000 to reviewer A, 5,000 to reviewer B. And everyone reviews those individually blinded from one another. And then you reconcile the differences. And that's a completely blinded process. So just like a blinded RCT, for example.
So it's blind with respect to each reviewer's evaluation.
Yes, exactly. You can also norm with these. I've had student groups who had like 5 or 6 people working on these projects. They have like 12,000 citations after deduplication. And they will then like norm on a set, and they'll try to come to 80 to 90%. The word's eluding me, but like where they're at 80 or 90% of what they're saying is like the same across all of them. So norming them. Yeah. Confidence. Yes. Thank you. The word was eluding me. And then they'll divide the remaining citations up into each like groups, and they'll review them. I've also had groups like pair off into pairs. So they'll blind, like they'll norm and then blind, like each group A would get 2,000, group B would get 2,000, and so forth. So there's different ways to do it based off your time commitment. The most rigorous way is to do like a blinded review, at least 2 reviewers reviewing every article. But, you know, that's very time consuming. There's other options.
But the intent is that way 2 researchers aren't saying, oh, have you read this one? It's better or worse.
Right. Exactly. Exactly. And you do that in title abstract review, and then you do that in full text review again. So it's it's very rigorous because you're blinding at every level of the process. With these searches for evidence syntheses or systematic research scoping reviews, you're aiming at sensitivity. So you'll see in a moment, I have an example, but you end up with a lot more articles. You're keeping 3 to 7 for every 100 articles you review in title abstract. So again, like you're trying to catch everything, but you're going to get a bunch of noise. So that's kind of the difference, is like literature reviews and precision searching, while systematic reviews and other types of reviews like that are doing sensitivity in their searching. So here's an example, kind of looking back at that other one that we did. You can see by searching 4 databases, I've only not caught 3 of these articles, right? That's the benefit of starting to use more and more databases, is you're going to catch more and more literature. And that's what you do. You have to do a minimum of 2. I never do anything less than 3 for a systematic or scoping review. And often I'll do 4 or 5. It really depends on the topic. The other big thing for these evidence synthesis, you have to have all of these things. So with a literature review, you saw I didn't have a list of must-haves, but with these you do. You have to have a protocol. The medical library is actually going to be implementing a policy that everyone has to write a protocol in order for us to help on the project. So, and I think we'll talk some more too in a moment, but protocols are required by Prisma now. There's an extension for protocols. You've probably heard of Prospero as well. If you're interested in this type of research, Prospero is a registry that's like a protocol registry as well, but it is only for systematic reviews. You have to have a reproducible search strategy, and I'll show you what that looks like too. And at least into 3 databases. That's my rule. The rule's technically 2, but I always recommend 3. Sentinel articles. So the whole process of this type of searching is you have a set of articles, right? You give me 3 articles you want included in your final manuscript. I can use those to test the search. So you develop a search and you test it against these articles to make sure your search is capturing those. So that's what makes it systematized. There's also new extensions called Prisma Searching. There's a Prisma Scoping extension. There's lots of them out there. These are reporting guidelines. So you have to adhere to all of these different reporting guidelines in order to meet these standards. You have to data manage. You have to think about your data managing, like your data management planning. If you've worked on other research, you might have done a DNP. I really recommend planning for your data management inside of your protocol, because trying to find your numbers, because you have to report every single number, like how many you get from each database, how many were deduplicated, how many you did title abstract screening on, right? You have to do all of that. And again, I know this is a lot of information. We're always here to help, and I'll have some tools too for you. You have to have at least a team of 2 to do these. You can't just do a systematic review by yourself. I'll have students come to me and they're the only one on their team. You have to have at least one other person to do this. Systematic reviews require critical appraisal. So you have to be familiar with how to critically appraise an article. Scoping reviews don't require that because they're more scoping in nature. So just be aware, like if you're unfamiliar with critical appraisal, you might want to seek out someone who has that expertise. You'll need software. You might need a statistician. You might need a librarian based off the goals of the project. And then citation and hand searching you have to do as well. So let me actually go back really quick. You see these articles out here outside of the Venn diagrams of our databases. These articles you'll try to want to capture, and you can do that through hand searching or citation chaining. So every if they're certain journals you want to search, you can hand search those and find articles. Citation chaining is finally like when you have your final included, like you have your 10 articles that meet all of your inclusion criteria and you reviewed, you then go through every single reference and do the same process on those references. And that's what citation chaining is. And again, if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. I know it's a lot of information. And then again, have 12 to 36 months to do this. Okay, so systematic reviews versus scoping. I want to just cover this really quickly because there is kind of a difference. I would say most people who come to me are wanting to do a scoping review. So systematic reviews, I always give the example, it's like a question like, does Tylenol or Advil better control fever in pediatric patients, right? You can look at that in the literature, pull out all of these drugs, pull out your pediatric population and get an answer quantitatively which one might do better, right? Systematic reviews are very good at clinical questions like that. And that's a very big one with lots of very specific with lots of literature, right? But that's what a systematic review is. A scoping review ends up being a lot more broad. You're trying to clarify a topic. You're trying to find different characteristics. You're trying to identify knowledge gaps. So this is what I was saying earlier, your question really makes up what type of review you're going to do. So for example, here's another one, our intranasal steroids or oral antihistamines better at controlling allergic rhinitis in adults, right? You can compare those two therapies with your population. Well, like these other ones, like how does hearing loss affect physical fitness or sports engagement? It's very broad, right? How do you like define sports? How do you define physical fitness? How do you like, what type of hearing loss? Things like that. It's very broad, and you'll be able to qualitatively examine the literature and say, well, people are playing basketball, they're doing volleyball, or they're doing outdoor activities, things like that. It's more of a scoping of the literature. And this is actually one I published with a medical student on what are the provider stigma and prescribed treatment plans for those with OUD in Appalachia. So that's another scoping review. We were able to pull out the literature and thematically like approach like what those stigmas were, what treatment plans were being implemented, what states they were, what states the literature was coming out of, what regions of Appalachia, all of that. So it's more of a qualitative analysis. I will say systematic and scoping reviews have the same rigor. So some people think that scoping reviews aren't as rigorous. They are, it's just the question that makes it different. And the method of analysis. Systematic reviews are very quantitative analysis, while scoping reviews are more of a qualitative analysis, and you might need some intercoder reliability. So like making sure you're extracting the same data. Okay, so here is an example search of one that a colleague and I did for a systematic review. And you can see here, it looks a lot different. It's a lot more specific. This is kind of stands for title abstract. It uses subject headings, which are medical subject headings. And you can actually, if we click on this, you can see we submitted it to a repository. So each search has a unique identifier. These are publicly available forevermore. Anyone can reuse it under Creative Commons license. And you can see kind of what these searches look like. And we did multiple databases. You can see here is the CINAHL one, so forth and so on. You can see all the different databases that we searched and the different search strategies. So just want to kind of show you that as an example. Search Archive is a really great place if you're just interested in looking at systematic review searches and what they may look like. This is a fairly new archive where we submit these. So I have another example. So this is an article, it's down at the bottom, and it's actually reported inside of a journal called Midwifery. And this is a systematic review. You can see that they published, or they searched PubMed, Web of Science, Cochrane, and ProQuest dissertations and theses, and they reported this search. You can see that these searches look very different from what I was developing. So this probably wasn't done by a librarian, and it doesn't technically meet the standards for Prisma. So I just wanted to take this as an example because this is actually an article a student gave me as a Sentinel article. And I want to show you kind of what I might do for a literature search, for a literature review, and then one for a systematic review. And this is looking at postpartum depression and telehealth. So here is my systematic review search, right? I have a bunch of terms. I'm aiming at sensitivity rather than precision. You can see all these different ways I described e-health interventions. I have telehealth, I have text messaging, I have web-based interventions, but I also have depression terms, not just postpartum. One big thing is I also didn't include women because women actually biases a search in this case because postpartum depression, if you use postpartum depression and women and telemedicine, the article would have to say women or female, right? So maybe they just use the term postpartum depression. So we'll want to be more inclusive in our terms. And note here, we have 771 articles from this search. So you can see that it's much more sensitive. We're getting kind of a larger number with this search. Here is a literature search. So I took that same topic and this person just came to me and wants a quick search about getting an overview of the concepts. So I'm aiming at precision here. And you can see when I put that search in, it's 159 results. So that's how these searches kind of differ. If you're just doing a plain literature review, you can be more precise, get 159 results. And if you're doing a systematic review, you're going to end up with that 700 plus results if you're aiming at sensitivity.
That little time measurement there, is that like the time the search is done, or is that the length of time the computer spent searching for?
It's the time the search was
Okay.
done. Yeah, you can download this and keep track of that. Yeah, so this is the advanced search in PubMed. We have some tutorials on it. I'm happy to meet with you all if you're interested in working on inside advanced PubMed. I highly recommend it. It's great. So it helps you track time and it helps you track results. And I actually build this like line by line. That's how I got that color coding, is because you can like build this line by line in there. So here are some evidence syntheses tutorials. So some of these need to be updated, I'll say, some are a little older, some are newer, but they're really great. The new Prisma extension one is a great one to start with if you've never done a systematic review. Knowing what Prisma is and what the updates are to it recently are helpful. We have a protocol development tool that is available to you for free. So please look at that video, and that's also available. And then we have some, again, that whole video where I go more into depth on like how to review a methodology using the slides I showed you earlier. Okay, I'm gonna zoom through this. Here's a systematic review guide. Sorry, it decided to take me back to my other page. Sorry about that. Well, we'll come back to that in a moment. I keep hitting that arrow instead of that. So I'll come back and show you the systematic review guide, and then I can just type it into the browser. Keeps taking me back to the other page. So know the problems with these methodologies. So I just want to talk a little bit about some of the issues happening in the field right now. If you're interested in doing systematic reviews, know that it's kind of a hot topic right now. New standards have been released to address many of the issues that we're seeing in reporting. And I've shown you some of those, like with the Prisma extension for searching and things like that. I've linked to them in some videos. This article, I point out to everyone I meet with. It was published in the European Journal of Pain, I believe, in 2022, a couple years ago. And it found that only 3 in 100 systematic reviews are deemed to have adequate methodology and to be clinically useful. So I have some advice if you're going to work on these projects. Appraise reviews yourself if you're going to be looking at them and using them. So if you're going to do them, do a systematic review, or if you're going to just use them in a project, appraise them. Look at tools like Moose or Amstar. Those are critical appraisal tools that are checklists that you can just use and like checklists to make sure that the review's meeting those standards. Don't contribute to the problem. So if you're interested in doing one of these evidence syntheses, consider like this whole presentation and seek out people who are experts in this area. We have a guide that's available. I also have the link here, so you can go there. And I'll come back and I'll go over this just a little bit in a second if I have some time. There's hours worth of tools and resources there. Ask a librarian, reach out. We're happy to help you. And then avoid these common pitfalls. So reach out to the medical center library early in the process. We've had students come to us who are completely done reviewing, trying to write up a manuscript, and the searches are wrong. So come to us early. If you don't want to do all that research and then not be able to publish on it, right? So contemplate your research question and be aware of really big topics like social determinants of health and health disparities. Really think about how you might be able to narrow those. And there's a bunch of other big topics out there, but those are 2 big ones that we see. Write a protocol and to be adherent with Prisma, and think about how you're going to manage your data. Recognize the time commitment and budget accordingly. So if you're a student, consider your educational workloads and factor that into your time frame. There's some students I worked with that it took them almost like about 20 months to get the paper out. So they started in their first year of medical school. So just be aware it takes some time, especially with your exam schedules and things like that. Search for reviews already published on your topic. If they exist, what makes yours different? We shouldn't be just publishing reviews on the same topic. Maybe it hasn't been updated in 10 years and you want to do an update. Maybe they didn't search a database, and they really should have searched that database. Those are all reasons to do a review again. And then think about the research tools and resources available to you before you begin your review. Are you going to need a statistician? Are you going to need a librarian? Are you going to need software? How are you going to get those full texts? And those are some of the things people get to later, and they don't know how they're going to get full text, but they're already to that point. Think about that ahead of time, and a protocol can help you with that. Here's some other tutorials on, like, you've probably seen me talk about mesh, about keywords and title abstract, about Boolean operators, how to read a PubMed search result page. We have all these tutorials here that can help you think about that and learn that. But you can also meet with us. And then we have just a moment. I can pop into the guide really quick, just so you can be familiar with it. So this is our systematic review research guide. It covers every type of review. We just call it systematic reviews because everyone searches for that. So we have, you can fill that out. It will probably be routed to me or one of my colleagues. And then we have our different levels of service here. And then again, this goes through each step of the process. So that's developer research question page. We have information on creating a protocol. We have tools and PDFs of examples. We have a bunch of things about searching for literature, like here's the PubMed basics videos. We have documentation tables. We talk about Prisma searching extension. We have Excel documents you can download to help you document your data. We have our database coverage table. So every day report our coverages here at UK when you do these reviews, we have that for you. So we have lots of tools here. We can go to conduct screening. We don't currently have a software. We are looking at investing in one. It'll be a few months off, but there are some freely available tools now, like EndNote to you, Rayon and SR Accelerator. We have tutorials for that. And then we also have, this is an area that I'm not as much of an expert in, but we do link to resources that are commonly used in the field on how to avoid bias. Systematic reviews have to have a bias area, like a press checklist for search strategies, and some other avoiding bias checklist. And then there's also appraisal tools. So these aren't all of the ones that are in existence, but these are some of the big ones. And then we link to if you need statistical help, and tools that are available on campus. And we also have a bunch of reproducibility things here on how to make your project reproducible, how to manage your data, and all of that is available here. And we have, again, tons of tutorials on all of this. So that's the guide, and I can answer any questions anyone has. I know we only have a few minutes.
And if folks have later questions, they email you directly or the library email, or is there like an online form? What do you prefer?
So they can email me directly. They can email NICLIB. Let me actually pop it up here. Presents. So this email right here on this slide, niclib@uky.edu. There's also libraries.uky.edu/MCL. Medical Center Library. We also have forms. If you want help, you can request help through here or a systematic review form. You can also email me directly. My email is laurene.robinson@uky.edu. And you can also find me under the directory, which I always forget where it is. Maybe it's here. Ask a Medical Librarian. You can find that email here as well. You can meet our team. And I'm right down here. You can Lauren Robinson.
And I just want to emphasize, because I heard you mention some students may know, some of these projects, you're actually a co-author. Like you can be that level of involved. They may not be aware of that.
Yes,
okay.
yes. So I can actually go back to that guide really quick. I still have it open. Maybe I do.
I saw when you first pulled it up.
Yeah, let me just go.
They can go anywhere from just a quick consultation to like a deep,
Yeah.
collaboration.
Yeah. We do have a wait list right now because we are understaffed. So reach out early. If you're wanting to work on this in the fall, reach out now.
I
That's,
don't see that's the red, okay.
yes, we're currently on a pause. Like we have so many. I'm working with several, like 3 or 4 groups right now, and so are my colleagues. So we have a little bit of a pause. Reach out early, get on that wait list, and we'll reach out to you. We have 2 new librarians coming on over the summer, so in the fall, we should be able to gear up again for it. But yeah, so we can do consultant level where we just are meeting with you 2 or 3 times. We can do a facilitator model where we'll actually give you feedback. We ask for acknowledgement, because those usually, we're spending probably no more than like 10 hours with you, just kind of reviewing your own searches. You're developing the searches, we're giving you feedback on that. We're teaching you how to use EndNote. We're teaching you how to do these things. And then the collaborator model, we do require co-authorship. We'll do the searches with students, though. I do spend a lot more time with them, showing them what I'm doing, how I'm building the searches, what the databases are doing to those searches. And we spend a little bit more time on that process, just so you're aware of that. With some of my faculty researchers, I'll just do the searches and things like that.
Last question for me, and then I'll be quiet, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You may have students watching this now or in the future who've just been told, you wanna work with me? Do the review part. If you have a student with no prior skills, do you feel like this is doable for them, or do they need to have someone on their team who has some exposure to this type of work? And it seems like it's like a whole different language for some of our students. What's kind of your realistic impression there?
So it kind of depends if the student really doesn't mind digging into the nitty gritty and figuring things out. I have students who will like dig in, figure it out, and kind of like just go off with it and be great. There's other students who need more of that assistance and want help with that. So it's kind of how the student wants to approach it. I would say it'd be better if you have someone who's done this before, just because I can help to a certain point. I can help up to like your data collection and your data extraction, like standardization. After that, like the analysis piece isn't my area of expertise. So having someone who's maybe done critical appraisal and actually like extracted data before, also someone who maybe have used REDCap. REDCap's a common tool students will use. So it's kind of a vague answer, I guess, but like it kind of depends on like their area of interest and how much they kind of want to dig down into it. Yeah. But I do think if you have an opportunity to work with someone who's done this before, it makes things so much simpler.
Folks, if you want to email Lauren or the MECLib address, and feel free to CC me or forward those to me, and I'm happy to post them on Canvas if folks have similar questions in the future. And we have a couple minutes if anybody else has a question right now. I don't have to write class in.